The older I get, the more I seem to enjoy the prospect of having a day that's not filled to the brim with things to do. I just woken up this morning and I was talking to my wife and I was saying it's kind of nice today. We don't have any interruptions. And I got to thinking about it really quickly because in the last few weeks we've had company at the house, we've had family gatherings. Of course, Thanksgiving is just over and all the commotion that goes along with that. And it was just really nice to have the prospect of a clear day. But it just took me a moment to realize and to think about what I was saying, because I was essentially saying that the people were the interruptions. And I was forgetting the big picture. The people are our lives. The things that we have to do on a daily basis as we interact with family and friends and associates really is what life is made up of, as are all the little tasks that go along with that. When Carolyn and I got married 42 years ago, I came across a little article, just a snippet of an article in the Reader's Digest, and I was really impressed by it. You see, the year before we got married, we were both in college, and we were both just as busy as you could possibly be. My fiance was in charge of several things at the school. She was on different councils, and she was in charge of different things. In addition to that, her classwork, she was working on top of that. And my schedule was equally busy. I had only 78 hours of my degree completed at the end of my junior year, and my senior year I ended up taking 50 hours. An incredible load for somebody who had taken his academic life so easily before that. And then added to that, I was working as well, and then I took part in as many extracurricular sports as I possibly could fit in. And then Carolyn and I got engaged, and then we tacked on the planning of a wedding on top of all that, and getting ready for a new job which had already been lined up, but a move back to Wyoming for the two of us from Texas. And so after just the absolute chaos and hectic schedules that we had had for a year, when I came across that article right after we got married, it was very appealing. And let me read what it says. This is by a woman by the name of Betty Howell. I don't know a lot about her other than that she wrote this little article. She said, "For a long time it seemed to me that real life was about to begin, but there was always some obstacle in the way. Something had to be got through first, some unfinished business, time to be served, a debt to be paid, then life would begin. At last it dawned on me that these obstacles were my life." Well, have you ever thought about that? All these things that we are trying to get through, just trying to pack as much into the day as possible so that we can get done with whatever project, whatever big event is going on. And sometimes we fail to step back and see the big picture. These series of events and projects are our lives. When you're young and growing up in the household of your parents, it may seem to be a burden, but really those are carefree days. Somebody else is worrying about putting a roof over your head and clothes on your back and food on the table. Somebody else is helping you make the decisions of when to get up and when to go to school and what you need to be doing during your different hours. And then you've got a lot of leisure hours where you just get to do whatever you want to do, especially the older you get. But then there comes that time where the situation changes and now you're the parent or you're the head of the household. You're responsible for all the bills. You're responsible to make sure that you get up on time and get to work and then get the work done that's needed to be done. And you're the one, if you have children, that raises the kids and makes sure they have a roof over their head and clothes on their back and food on the table. And there are times where you just kind of want to escape because you seem so busy. And a lot of people at this point feel unfulfilled because they really want to be doing something important, but they've got all these obstacles in the way. And then it finally dawns on them. These interruptions, these inconveniences, these obstacles, they are your life. They're what life consists of. And once we realize that, if we can realize that, it will permit us to slow down and to enjoy the everyday. Here's how Solomon put it. In Ecclesiastes chapter 5 and verse 18, after going through a long series of things that he identified as being meaningless, they were just, it was as if this king was waiting for life to begin as soon as he got through with his big projects. And as he would do these big projects and he would look back on it, he wasn't fulfilled, because he didn't have his focus right. And then in chapter 5 and verse 18 of Ecclesiastes, this is what Solomon writes. It's one of the great insights, by the way, of the book of Ecclesiastes. He said, "Then I realized it is good and proper for a man to eat and drink and find satisfaction in his labor under the sun during the few days of life that God has given him, for this is his lot. Moreover, when God gives any man wealth and possessions and enables him to enjoy them, to accept his lot, to be happy in his work, this is a gift of God. He seldom reflects on the days of his life because God keeps him occupied with the gladness of his heart." God keeps him occupied with the gladness of his heart. Think about that. When Solomon said it's good and proper to eat and to drink and to find satisfaction in your work, he was not saying eat, drink, and be merry for tomorrow we die. That's an empty lifestyle. That's where you're just living for the carnal pleasures of life. That's not what Solomon's saying at all. But he is saying that you can enjoy these things in their proper place, these things that are not sinful in their proper place, and that we need to stop and appreciate what God's given to us. He does keep us occupied with the gladness of our heart because he keeps us occupied. And these things that keep us occupied are often the things that we consider to be obstacles, or the things that we consider to be interruptions. They're the things we consider the things to be gotten through before life begins. And if we're not careful, we'll live a whole life of that without realizing that these things really are our lives. We are put here for a very brief period of time. In a way, it's very much a test. Will you serve God? Will you serve God on his terms? Will you serve God when times are good? And will you serve God when times are bad? If you can do that, and when you fail at that, if you can come back to God on his terms, well, you're going to find yourself having the prospects of a really fine eternity in heaven. Not because you deserve it, but because God has provided you with the opportunity to do so. And if we're wise, we'll also recognize that all these things that we have to do along the way very much are privileges. And they can be enjoyed in their proper place if we'll just take the time to do so. Think about putting together a jigsaw puzzle. I don't know if you've ever done that or not, but a lot of us have put together jigsaw puzzles, and maybe you've had a 1,000-piece jigsaw puzzle before, and what do? Well, you'll come and you'll work on it for a while, and then you'll get distracted and do something else, and you come back and you'll work on it for a while, and you'll go off and start doing things, and then after a while you get a little more serious about it, and you almost feel compelled to finish it. And then finally the day comes, you fit that last piece, and there's that satisfaction of, I've got the puzzle finished, and you look at it for a second, and most of us just break it back up and put it right back into the box. Why? Well, it wasn't the picture we were after, it was the process that we were after. It was a feeling of accomplishing something a little bit at a time. And if we do it with other people, the enjoyment that we have of the fellowship, the visiting back and forth, the joking back and forth, just the quiet time we sit with somebody at our elbow looking for the same piece we're looking for. You see, it's the process that really is the joy. And in life, we need to keep in mind that it's the process. It's the things that keep us occupied. It's the interruptions. It's the things that we think we have to get through for real life to begin that really are our real life in the first place. When you and I can get that perspective, I believe it allows us to take a lot more satisfaction in the day-to-day. Maybe it'll help us to keep from getting as impatient as we do, not just with ourselves, but with others, especially our children. Sometimes our employees or our employers. If we can settle back and appreciate the fact that God has given us satisfying work to do, that He has given us a service that is enjoyable and a service that's meaningful, a service that actually helps people. If we can take into account all of these things, I believe that God will keep us occupied with the gladness of our heart. But if we don't, then we're going to find like Solomon did when he got distracted, when his eye was taken off the ball, that life is meaningless. And so you get to choose. Which will it be? Is life just a series of things to be gotten through until real life begins, or are these things that keep us occupied our life, and do we need to enjoy them more and appreciate them more? I think you can answer that question for yourself. Well, that's the thought for today. I hope it gives you something to mull over, something to appreciate. It's certainly something that I appreciate more and more. I cut this article out over 42 years ago, or about 42 years ago, and it means more to me as the years go by. Life has already begun. Let's enjoy it. Appreciate your listening today. I hope we'll see you tomorrow.